What's really unfolding in these early days of 2026, when the world hasn't even had a chance to catch its breath before getting pulled into a spiral with no way out? In just a short time, prayers ring out in the heart of America's capital. The Patagonia forests burn fiercely. Strange shapes appear in the sky. Holy statues rise up from the ground. Lake surfaces crack open. Streets sink into riots. Tornadoes roar like trumpets. The sun swells up unusually big. Fire whirlwinds stand tall in the desert, and glowing clouds drop so low it's hard to breathe. Do you feel that fear spreading as these events stop standing alone and start pushing against each other like a chain reaction? Those 10 signs aren't making noise on their own anymore. They're piling on top of one another, squeezing the present and making the future look dark and uncertain. But this is only the opening part of a picture that's slowly coming into view. Keep scrolling down to see more clearly what's being laid out ahead. And if you still hold a hope for peace in your heart, leave a prayer below for this shaking world. Now, let's get started right away with the first event. Trump organizes a massive prayer event for believers to pray for peace in America in 2026. Night settled over the National Mall in an unusual quiet, where the lights weren't just for illumination anymore, but to hold onto that solemn feeling. Under the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial, long rows of people knelt down, their hymns rising slowly, blending into the cold early year wind, like an old ritual waking up in modern times. In that moment, you could really feel a rare kind of calm, when the worries of the day stepped aside, for a deep hope of being protected. The America Prays event, held right in the heart of Washington, D.C., stood out not just for its size, but for how it brought strangers together in the same rhythm. Major religious groups were there side by side, rows of American flags standing still in the breeze. And on stage, Donald Trump appeared with a call to turn to Jesus as a spiritual anchor, not shouting, not declaring, just stressing the need for unity and faith. Laser lights drew across almost 500 feet long across the night sky, creating a sacred feeling that hushed the crowd before they all joined in song. In that space, the Bible came up gently, more as a suggestion than a firm point. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Those words echoed not to explain the event, but to light up what was happening. A strength coming not from one person, but from people united in the same belief. As the shared emotion built, the faces turned toward the stage no longer showed differences in politics or background. There was just the sense of standing together in a big spiritual circle. Joel 2:28 was mentioned again, like a whisper through the crowd, "And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy." The scripture felt like a bridge here, hinting that shared faith could offer comfort in uncertain times. It all ended in a heavy silence, with nobody rushing to leave, as if waiting for some sign that hadn't come yet. That prayer gathering hung between hope and worry, like a lighthouse shining in rough seas, but no one could be sure if the ship would reach safe harbor. That quiet pause opens the door to the rest of the story, where each next event will slowly answer whether the light that just flared up is the start of a revival or just a quick flash before a bigger storm. Blazing fires in Patagonia's forests can't be put out because of environmental cuts. The fire started without warning, swallowing up the old-growth forests of Patagonia, like the ground itself opened up and spat out hell. Thick black smoke rose straight into the sky, blocking out the sun for miles around and turning daytime into a long, eerie dusk. The crackling pops of dried trees burning mixed with desperate cries for help from isolated communities. The scale of this disaster is overwhelming, turning personal fear into something everyone shares. According to reports from mainstream news sites, more than 700 people in Argentina's Patagonia region had to be evacuated in a hurry, and at least 20 homes were burned down in a short time. The fires have spread over thousands of acres, while local firefighting teams are badly short on people and equipment after environmental budgets were cut by 81% recently. Looking at those cold numbers, it's hard not to feel like this isn't just an accident. It's the result of choices made over many years. Environmental experts say cutting back on forest protection funds and fire prevention spending has left Patagonia's ecosystems extremely vulnerable. Strong winds blowing through dry valleys turned the flames into walls nearly 100 feet high. Wild animals panicked and fled, leaving behind bare forests and air thick with poisonous smoke. Amos 4-7 once wrote, I withheld rain from one city while I made it rain on another. And those words ring out like an accusation, pointing to the imbalance people have caused and the disaster now pouring down. In deeper analyses, scientists warn that the damage won't stop with what's burning right now. Burned forest land will lose its ability to hold water, raising the risk of flash floods in the coming rainy seasons and disrupting the livelihoods of thousands of families who depend on the forests. Revelation 8-7 describes, "The first angel sounded his trumpet, and there came hail and fire mixed with blood, hurled down on the earth," and that image doesn't feel far off anymore. As fire and smoke have become familiar signs of a planet pushed to its limits. Skeptics call this disaster a natural event that's hard to avoid, but the data on budget cuts, weakened environmental protections, and slow responses paint a different picture. The Patagonia fires are like a warning written in smoke and ash, reminding us that every decision today leaves lasting marks on the land and climate. And with the first flames not even out yet, the big question hanging in the air is whether this is just a local tragedy or the spark for a wider wave of destruction across South America. Those mysterious eyes in the sky. The sky suddenly tore open like a thin curtain, revealing a shape that stopped people in their tracks. The layers of clouds formed a huge eye, wide open and still, hanging right overhead. The first feeling wasn't fear, but a breathtaking wonder, like something hidden had just been uncovered. Have you ever wondered, if the sky could look down on us, what it would see? This sight didn't show up in just one place. From the cold lands of northern Europe to the misty valleys of Wales, social media was flooded with similar videos, spreading fast like wildfire. Pink and blue colors glowed around the pupil, forming a perfect ring of light that was hard to believe. The timing and shape being so similar made many folks feel it was more than just chance. From the videos shared, the eye was miles across, stayed put for a few minutes, then vanished all at once, as if it had never been there. No official word from experts, just quiet comments from viewers describing the sense of being watched from above. In that moment, the uncertainty turned into a chill, because no one knew for sure what they'd just seen. Psalm 34-15 says, "The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry." Those old words suddenly rang out in today's world, like a key unlocking some deeper meaning. When the shape in the sky looked like such a perfect eye, a lot of people stopped seeing it as just a trick of the clouds. Debates exploded all over online forums. Some believe it's a holy sign, a stern gaze piercing through the world, reminding us of things we're trying to hide. Others push back, saying it's just a light effect in the atmosphere, rare, but still natural. The two sides clash hard, with neither backing down. Revelation 1-7 says, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." For many, that verse isn't some distant symbol anymore. It feels like it's happening right in front of them. They think that gaze in the sky isn't there to enjoy the view, but to watch what's going on down here. Between belief and doubt, one thing still hangs in the air. That feeling of being watched hasn't gone away. If those eyes really appeared as a reminder, what's coming next? And what do you think? Is it just random clouds? Or a quiet gaze counting down the time we have left? Archaeologists uncover the upper body of a giant statue of Jesus. The excavation started quietly. No fanfare, no hint of what was coming. Layer by layer, the dirt and rock were peeled away until a familiar shape slowly emerged, solemn and slow. The air grew heavy, as if the past was speaking for itself. Sometimes silence says more than any words ever could. From deep in the ground came the upper part of a huge statue, arms spread wide. The stone eyes looked down, not angry, not blaming, just carrying a quiet sadness that's hard to name. Anyone standing there couldn't help but pause a little longer, feeling something deeper than ordinary archaeology. Do you ever get that gentle but deep touch in moments like this? In Encantado, Brazil, the statue, about 140 feet tall, was lifted from the earth after being buried for so long. Its arm span is close to 92 feet, and as the stone was cleaned, every detail came back clear, shining like it had just been carved. Lately, social media has been sharing a story. This statue reminds people of sacred figures that have appeared in different places around the world, like pieces of a memory that never really went away. When people look into those thoughtful eyes, many say they feel a slow wave of reflection. Not fear, just a quiet questioning. like being invited to look at themselves. How can a stone gaze feel so moving? And why does this image show up right now? Isaiah 53:3 adds a deeper layer. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering. The verse feels like a gentle suggestion, nothing forced. That sadness in the stone eyes suddenly looks like forgotten love, understanding that's quiet but lasting. Once placed in the church, the statue is more than an old relic. It stands there silently, arms open but not grasping, as if waiting for people to come on their own. Have you ever wondered why open arms can comfort you and still leave a soft ache in your heart? John 3:16 closes with a lingering echo. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son. The love spoken of isn't loud, it comes with sacrifice and pain. Maybe that's why the statue isn't complete yet, still unfinished, like an open question left for all of us. If one day the rest of the statue is found, what will be finished first? The stone figure, or the awakening in the hearts of those looking up? The ground under the lake bottom suddenly heaved up and split open. The calm water surface suddenly shook, like someone was pounding hard from below, and in just a moment, the earth and rocks swelled up, ripping the lake's surface into long, twisting dark streaks. That sight left many people stunned, because it didn't look like any familiar disaster they'd seen before. Have you ever imagined that something that seems completely still under your feet could suddenly rise up like that? At Great Salt Lake in Utah, mounds covered in reeds suddenly rose above the water. Along with murky streams bursting out from underground springs below, many areas saw the ground push up about 10 feet, with cracks stretching for miles like fresh scars across the lake's body. The air felt heavy, because every cracking sound gave the feeling that something was trying to break free. People standing near the lake said the water didn't just pull apart, it swirled a bit, like it was being sucked down and then pushed back up. The cracks spread fast, cutting through areas that seemed solid, creating a scene that was both chaotic and puzzling. At times, the whole movement seemed out of step with the normal rhythm we're used to. Revelation 6:12 comes across like a chilling warning. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth. When those words come to mind, the ground shaking no longer feels like just a change in the land. It seems like a roar that's been held in too long, now forced out through the breaking. Videos spreading online show similar cracks that appeared in Colorado and Michigan, making many people think of a connected chain of underground movements. Plenty of folks say it's just geological changes, but the strange shapes and how fast they spread raise big questions about that view. Which side do you lean toward when you see those images? Joel 2:10 adds to the uneasy feeling. The earth shakes before him, the heavens tremble. This Bible verse leads many to believe the earth isn't just reacting physically, it's sending a serious message. The ground heaving up like it can't take any more, and each crack a reminder that limits have been reached. On forums, arguments flare up fiercely. Some say it's a rare event, but still within natural laws. Others believe it's the start of a bigger collapse. The debates clash without mercy, because fear always brings belief and doubt side by side. Where do you think the line is between explanation and warning in a moment like this? If those cracks keep spreading, will they stay just at the lake bottom, or go farther, reaching the very ground we stand on every day? American flag burned in Minneapolis to protest ICE's wrong actions. The streets of Minneapolis turned chaotic as loud chants echoed, sirens wailed, and people rushed around, creating a scene that felt tense and overwhelming. In the thick smoke, flames shot up from an angry crowd, making the heavy air even more strained. Can you picture that moment when order and anger clash head-on like that? It all started at East 34th Street and Portland Avenue, where thousands gathered after ICE shot Renee Nicole Good. Things quickly went from tense to confrontational, with shouts mixing with the sound of breaking glass, spreading a sense of disorder. News reports say the protests heated up when an American flag about 20 feet tall was set on fire, thick black smoke covering the intersection, forcing police to set up barriers. News reports say authorities brought in more crowd control units, while protesters kept pushing toward main roads. Photos show the crowd looking both mad and confused, some watching from the sidelines, others facing off directly. The constant movement of people put the downtown area on high alert, with traffic jammed for hours. Matthew 24:10 comes across like a stark warning about today's reality. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. When you put this Bible verse next to scenes of a flag burning and opposing groups clashing, it makes the cracks in our community stand out more. What do you see when those images spread all over social media? Meanwhile, Romans 13:1 talks about order and authority. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities. This contrast has a lot of folks wondering about the line between standing up and following rules, between feeling injustice and keeping things stable. Plenty of people say violence just deepens divisions, while others see it as a cry of desperation. The debates that followed were heated but mostly measured. One side sees it as the result of long-building political and social tensions. The other believes the spread and the burning of that symbol point to something bigger than a regular protest. Which explanation makes more sense to you as these events keep unfolding? If the fires in the streets are just the beginning, the big question left is whether they'll die out soon or keep smoldering, testing the ties that hold America together in the days ahead. Mysterious, twisting tornadoes from giant trumpet-like clouds. The sky suddenly darkened with heavy gray clouds, massive swirling masses hanging low and thick, almost suffocating, making everything feel overwhelming, like the air itself was closing in. From the center of those dark clouds, tall wind columns dropped straight down to the ground one after another, both majestic and frightening, giving the sense we were watching something beyond the usual rules of nature. No loud bangs, no bright lightning, just a quiet but powerful presence that made your heart beat faster. As it went on, there weren't just one or two of these twisting columns. More appeared, standing side by side like huge trumpets pointing straight from the sky to the earth. They spun fiercely, wide and flared at the top, narrowing as they touched the ground, creating a rare sight that made many people think of a signal being sounded from high above. The wind howled, the ground shook, and it all happened so fast, like one warning after another, with no time to catch your breath. Revelation 8:6 says, "The 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets got ready to blow them." That image, next to these twisting columns appearing together and shaped like trumpets, makes a lot of folks pause and think about the eerie connection. Old symbols seem to be playing out in today's skies, like a message laid out again for everyone to see. Psalm 107:25 goes on like an explanation of that power. For he commanded and raised the stormy wind, which lifted up the waves of the sea. To believers, these twisting columns aren't just air moving around. They're a response, where nature becomes a way to send a message beyond human words. Each swirl reminds us that wind and storms have never been purely random. From a scientific view, weather experts say this is a multi-vortex event happening when unstable conditions in the atmosphere cause several wind cores to form at once. Differences in temperature, humidity, and wind speed create those flared columns, sometimes reaching speeds up to 165 miles per hour, strong enough to destroy anything in their path. To them, it's an extreme but explainable part of how the atmosphere works. Two viewpoints, one seeing it as physical laws, the other as a symbolic warning, leave you in the middle, not sure which to choose. When you're caught between them, which side do you lean toward? Seeing those wind columns as just harsh weather, or as a message sent through the language of the sky? No matter how you look at it, the way these twisting columns appeared all at once, with their unusual shape, is a strong reminder that we don't control everything. If this is just the beginning, what might come next after those trumpets have sounded in the air? The sun suddenly looked brighter and bigger, with a strange halo around it. The daytime sky suddenly turned unusual when the sun appeared larger than normal, with light so intense that it left many people stunned and worried. The rings of light around it weren't faint anymore but spread out wide, giving the feeling that something was getting closer to Earth. In that scene, all sorts of questions popped up in people's minds, because what was happening didn't look like any ordinary midday sky we'd ever remembered. As the light got stronger, the whole atmosphere shifted to something both amazing and scary, like nature was opening a door that folks weren't ready to walk through. The sun wasn't just glaring more, it felt like it was swelling up, with a bright halo stretching for miles, causing glare and temporary blindness in many areas. In that moment, we really felt how fragile we are, compared to a source of power that's always seemed so familiar. Matthew 24:29 once said, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light." Those words echoed like a haunting contrast, because instead of fading, the sun was getting way too bright, way too close, as if setting the stage for some kind of reversal that hasn't been fully told. Old images from the past suddenly took on a whole new meaning under this light, leaving many unable to stay indifferent. As the phenomenon kept going, a vague unease spread through the watching community, where the line between wonder and danger felt thin. The halo was perfectly round and unusually sharp, making the sky look more like a surreal painting than a natural view. In those seconds, you might feel time slowing down, with every ray carrying a weight that's hard to describe. Revelation 16:8 records. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and the sun was allowed to scorch people with fire. Those words came across like a direct warning, putting that blazing light in the context of judgment and limits, no longer just a gentle source of life. The sun in the Bible takes on the role of a tool to test humanity. Online, opinions quickly split. Some saw it as a spiritual sign. Others tried to find a more familiar explanation for what was happening. No official answer came out at the time, just a flood of photos, videos, and waves of anxiety passing from one to the next. It was the lack of a clear explanation that made the unease grow even thicker. No matter how you look at it, that moment when the sun turned strange left a mark that's hard to forget in our shared memory. If this light was just the opening act, what might happen as it keeps changing in the days ahead?